Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I wanted to talk about a ticker symbol that I recently came across. The ticker symbol is SPYT. It is managed by Defiance, and it is their S&P 500 Income Target ETF. So they are very popular for a lot of their other ETFs like QQQY and the S&P 500 equivalent, but pretty much they sell zero DTE spreads or options, and they produce very high yields. They're derivative income ETFs, and kind of like the con from those is that the NAV, they're producing some very high yields, so their NAV is just eroding pretty significantly. I think some of their dividends, don't quote me on this, definitely do your own research, but I think they're in the range of 50% yields, and then anytime you're distributing that type of income, the NAV or the cost of the ETF is going to erode. But the difference with this one is that their goal, they're not going to produce as high of a yield. They're hoping, I think, based upon the information I saw online, it was around 20%, but they're also trying to keep that NAV steady and purchase the S&P 500 within the fund. So you'll be able to see within the holdings, they either purchase SPY or VOO. I don't think it's actually VOO. I think it's like the iShares equivalent, so maybe like IVV. But so they purchase a big part of their fund, just the straight S&P 500 index. Obviously with the risk with that is if the S&P 500 drops 30%, you're also going to drop 30% because you're participating 100% within the index. You will be hedged a little bit because they sell zero DTE spreads that can definitely hedge some of that downside, but in tandem, if SPY continues to rip up, some of those gains are going to be capped on the upside as well. So looking at SPYT, this is on the Robin platform, like I mentioned, managed by Defiance. Past week it's up about 1.5%. Past month it's pulled back a good bit, pretty similar to the S&P 500. Year to date, that's not a true testament because it just came out in March. So it's like I mentioned, a very new fund. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out with it. I have dabbled with it a little bit, bought a couple shares, nothing crazy yet, but it is an interesting, concept. Eventually I would like to just kind of do this myself, and I'm definitely doing that. In long term, that's going to be the move as well, to invest in the S&P 500, and then also sell, either covered calls or additional option premium against those holdings. Coming down here, they have 7 holdings currently. Their inception date was March 4th, so just a little bit ago. It's actively managed. Their holdings is, so they're holding the iShares core S&P 500. They have a little bit of treasury, I believe those are treasury bills as well, and then some calls on the S&P 500 expiring in May. Assets under management, 11 million. So like I mentioned, new fund, not a whole lot of money in it yet, but they are looking to grow. The expense ratio is pretty high, but I think that is very justifiable. Whenever you're selling these types of spreads, it takes time. Obviously zero DTE is even that much more time. So there's some other ones like I mentioned, QQY, IWMY, and those are definitely higher yielding ones, but the NAV is going to definitely erode on some of those there. So by all means, this is not financial advice. I just kind of wanted to bring the awareness to it as I come across different ETFs that I find interesting. I definitely like to spread the word about them, and just have you go and do your own research as well, because it may or may not make sense for your certain situation. So definitely keep that in mind. I'll show you QQQY real quick. So it's a little bit, so it's down 16% year to date, but they are producing some massive yields. So it's kind of really hard to assess based upon this chart of how it's performing. You'll have to invest. But that NAV is, as you can see, it's eroding pretty quickly. So, but yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. Just wanted to shoot a quick one talking about ticker symbol SPYT. Defiance is S&P 500 income target ETF. They produce additional income, like I mentioned, via derivative income of selling options, selling spreads, and different things like that. So let me know what you guys think down below. Are you interested in this type of ETF? Like I mentioned, it's a derivative income ETF. Plus, it's also invested into the S&P 500 ETF. Let me know your thoughts down below. It'll be interesting to see how this performs long term, and if it can actually keep that NAV pretty steady. It will be a different vehicle for sure to consider if you're wanting to invest in the S&P 500 and then also create some type of income on top of that as well. So hope you guys got some value from this. Please like and subscribe down below. Appreciate it. Thanks.